Bi'ur Mishnah Bet. Let's deal with the second Mishnah. Kotel sheben chatzerot gavoa asara. Now you have a wall between two courtyards, which is at least 10 tfachim. But we're going to have something else with it. What is going to be? Verochav arba'a. And he has a width of 4 amot, which makes it Rishut HaYachid. Now it's actually a domain. The one is said is wide. In other words, it can be used as something. The wall itself can be used to put a bed, you can use. And remember, it's not like these days. These days, nobody uses roofs. In those days, roofs was part of this. You know, when you sell a house over here, you don't sell the square footage of the roof as part of the house. At those time, you used to sell the square footage of the roof as part of the house. It was living space. Yeah, roofs were living spaces. People used to live on the roofs all summer. Yeah, that's, you used to have ovens over there. You used to have their beds over there. You used to do everything over there. So over here, the fact that it's 4 amot wide makes it almost like a residential place. On the wall. Do some things, whatever. ורוחב 4, כלומר שאביו 4 טפחים. The minimum width is 4 טפחים. Obviously 4 טפחים is not enough to do anything, but it just gives you the minimum width where it's considered to be domain. It could be much more than 4 טפחים. Yeah. בגמרא מבואר, in the Gemara it explains, שמה שנקטה המשנה ורוחב 4, it says, why did it say it has to have the width of 4 amot? אינו אלא משום סיפה. It is going to be because of the end of the Mishnah. We're going to see in the end of the Mishnah, that's why it says it. What happened in the end of the Mishnah? Yeah, Rishut Yachid. Rishut Yachid, it's considered Yachid. That's it. Hainu hayu berosho perot. It says because what did they use to use it? They used the 2 courtyards used to use this space to put fruits to dry them, because there's enough space to put fruits then dry them. So the question now comes: are you allowed to take those fruits on Shabbat, the dried fruits, and eat and bring them into your courtyard? You made an eruv. These guys made an eruv. The wall is in between. Are you allowed to? There's no eruv. In other words, it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you. And now are we allowed to use it to carry it into our domain?
And the wall belongs to both of them.
And the wall belongs to both of us. But we didn't make an eruv between them.
The wall is not wide.
It is wide.
It's 4.
It's 4. If it's less than 4, then you're not. Then we're going to see in the end of the Mishnah. But if it's more than 4, so let's see. כמו שנבאר להלן, like we're going to explain further. אבל לעניין מחיצה בין שני החצרות, when it considered to be a separation between the 2 courtyards, כל שהיא גבוהה 10 טפחים, the separation as long as it is 10 טפחים tall, אף שעובייה כלשהו, even if the width is anything, a millimeter, I don't care, but there's a separation of 10 טפחים, הרי הוא חוצצת את החצרות לשתי רשויות. So the fact that there's a fence between them or there's a wall between them makes it into 2 domains, and therefore they have to make 2 Eruvin. If they didn't make 2 Eruvin, they cannot carry from one courtyard to the next. ולכן מערבים 2. Therefore they have to make 2 Eruvin. 2 Eruvin, שכל חצרת מערבת עירוב חצרות לעצמה. Every courtyard to itself, and then they have to make another Eruv between the 2 courtyards.
Here, this is 10 tfachim, this wall?
10 tfachim at least. At least 10 tfachim.
This wall.
Yeah.
So when they see making another area between the 2 courtyards, does that mean just making a window in the wall or making a gate?
It's putting food. One person from one courtyard has to put food in another person in the other courtyard. That's what it means. Okay? Usually it's bread. They will put bread from one courtyard to another courtyard. Also, the regular roof between the residents of one courtyard is with food. They would put particular food in one house, and that is considered to be where they eat now. So everybody joins the courtyard. Yeah, that's the idea. ואין מערבין אחד, and they're not allowed to make one עירוב. ואין שני החצרות יכולות לערב עירוב אחת לשניהם. They're not allowed to, since they're separated. So now let's look at our case. Hayu berosho perot. There was on that wall fruits. Hayu munachim perot berosh hakotel shebil shnei hachatzerot. On that wall there used to be fruits. Elu olim mikan. So this is what you do now. This one can go up from one side. Ve'ochlin. But they're not allowed to take it into the courtyard. It's a third domain. In other words, they're not allowed. That's right. They have to eat up there. They're not allowed to carry them back into their home. Ve'elo ochlim mikan ve'ochlim. And these one climb onto it from the other courtyard and they eat. But again, both courtyards can use it, but they're not allowed to carry from it. They have to eat right over there. It's a domain on its own. Anshei chatzer zo v'anshei chatzer zo. These people in this courtyard and that people on that courtyard, mutarim la'alot lerosh hakotel. They are permitted to go up to the head of the wall, ve'le'echol sham et haperot, and to eat the fruits where? Right over there. Ubelvad shelo yoridu lemata. As long as they're not going to bring it down, lebatehem, to their houses. Ve'hu adin, it's the same thing obviously. שלא יעלו חפציהם מבתיהם למעלה. They're not allowed to bring any object from their courtyard, from their houses, up onto the wall. שהואיל והכותל רחב 4, since this wall has a width of 4 טפחים, דינו כגג, we're going to consider it like a roof. And remember, a roof is not like a roof in our days. A roof is a living space. וגגות ובתים שתי רשויות הם. And the houses and the roofs are considered to be 2 domains. וזהו שהזכרנו לעיל, and this is what we mentioned before, שמשום הלכה זו נקטה המשנה ורוחב 4. It says, this is why the Mishnah says it has to be a width of 4, שאילו אינו רחב 4, because if it's not the width of 4, it's not a domain. It's hareu makom ptur. It is considered to be a place of ptur. What is makom ptur? You're not obligated if you carry from one domain to another domain. That's a makom ptur. Patur me'onesh. But it's going to be over here. Since it's a mitzvah from the rabbis over here, they might permit it to you. It's not the oraisa. Umutarim elu ve'elu lehorid lemata. And then they will be allowed to take from the wall if it's less than 4. If it's 4, it's a domain on its own. But if it's less than 4, then you'll be allowed to take it from the wall to your house, and these guys from the wall to their houses. ברם, גם כשהוא רוחב 4, but it says, also when it has a width of 4, מותר להוריד ממנו לחצר. There is still a way to take it down, to take the fruits down to your yard, ולעלות אליו מהחצר, and to go down from it, from the courtyard, שגגות וחצרות רשות אחת הן, because roofs and courtyards are one domain, ואף בחצר שאינה מעורבת, and even in a courtyard that doesn't have a roof, מותר לטלטל בקולה כלים ששבתו בחצר. You're allowed to carry vessels as long as the vessels are a domain in the courtyard, not in the house. So it's very strange. You're allowed to take your vessels from your house into the courtyard. You're allowed to take a vessel that was in the courtyard on Friday onto the wall. Onto the wall, that's right. But you will not be allowed to take a vessel from your house onto the wall. In other words, the vessel. It's all, kind of. And even though you're allowed to take from your house to the courtyard, it's a kind of in between. It's a kind of in between state. So otherwise, if you had a vessel in the courtyard on Friday, then you'll be allowed to use that vessel to the roof, because the courtyard and the roof are combined. Yeah. But your house and that roof is not combined. It's an interesting thing. אלא שאסור להכניס ולהוציא מן הבתים לחצר בלא עירוב. Okay. So let's see what happens next one. נפרץ הכותל עד 10 אמות. This wall had a break in it. There was a wind came or whatever and broke the wall. Earthquake and broke the wall, and now you have a length of 10 amot in the kotel that is broken. Width. אם נפרץ הכותל שבין שני החצרות והפרצה אינה רחבה מ10 אמות, and the opening is not wider than 10 amot, מערבים שניים. Then you make an eruv again, you have to make 2 eruvin, one for your courtyard, one from the thing. שכל חצר הוא עדיין רשות בפני עצמה, because still every courtyard is on its own. ולכן אין היא מערבת עירוב לעצמה, and therefore it doesn't do an eruv to itself. So we see there's a difference. You see, we would think from the previous Mishnah that we learned from Mishnah Aleph that if it's 4 amot, it's enough. Yeah, if it's 4 amot, it's enough. It's a 4 amot enough if it was put there on purpose. If it just happened by its own, yeah, then you need at least 10 amot to make it into an opening. See? Yeah. If it was on purpose done, then it's an opening. But over here it wasn't done on purpose. We don't know that you really want it. Yeah, that's why it needs at least 10. ואם רצו, מערבים אחד. And if they want, they can make it 1 eruv, just like with the window. It's better to make 2 eruvin, but if they want, it's halachically permissible to only make 1. עירוב אחד לשניהם. ויטלטלו מזו לזו כמו בני חצר אחת, and then they're allowed to carry from this courtyard to the other courtyard, just like in 1 yard. מפני שהוא כפתח, because that's an opening. Even though it wasn't done on purpose, it's still an opening, as long as it's more than 10 טווחים. שהפרצה שאינה רחבה מ10 אמות היא כפתח. That the opening that is not wider than 10 אמות, it is considered to be like an opening, וכל שיש פתח בין שני החצרות, מערבים שניים. And all that there is an opening between 2 courtyards, it's better to make 2 eruvim, but אם רצו מערבים אחד. But if you still want, you can do 1 eruv. יותר מכאן, if it's more than 10 טווחים, אבל אם הפרצה רחבה מ10 אמות, it is wider than 10 אמות, then it's 1 courtyard. It's not 2 courtyard. מערבין אחד. Then you don't even have the choice of making 2. It is 1 courtyard. Just as a wall, there's an opening. If there's an opening between the 2 courtyards, it's 1 courtyard. You know where you would have many times this case in modern things? Like buildings. They share a park. And then another building will share a park next to it. And the 2 parks attach each other. Yeah? The 2 buildings have to do 1 eruv. They don't have an option to do an eruv for this building and an eruv for this building. They have a shared park. Yeah, so this is something that is actually applicable to today. The 2 buildings, that as long as this courtyard and this park are attached to each other, yeah, they have to make, it looks like one. The 2 buildings, every residence, in other words, this building is not allowed to make an eruv on its own, and this building on its own, and then make an eruv between them. The whole building and this whole building have to make 1 eruv. They're not allowed to make 2, because the 2 parks are completely attached. If it's more than 10, yeah. מערבים אחד, צריכים דיירי שני החצרות לערב עירוב אחד. They need to make 1 eruv. But the buildings I'm not sure over, because you remember we discussed then. A חצר משותפת means that every house is open into the חצר. And the buildings, not every house is open into the חצר. So we're talking about in a case where a building is not a good example. That every house has to be open into the courtyard. Yeah. So the building is not, except there are those who do learn it this way. You remember that even if it's one after another and open into the courtyard. You remember we learned it last time. Okay. But that's the idea behind it. ואין מערבים שניים. And they don't make 2 עירובים. שני עירובים כל אחד לעצמה. לפי ששתי החצרות נחשבות מחמת הפרצה כחצר אחת. Because there's no option. Because there's a wide opening between the 2 courtyards, they're considered to be only 1 courtyard. ואם ערבה כל אחת לעצמה, and if they did each one on its own, they made a mistake, הרי הם כבני חצר שחילקו עירובם ואוסרים הם אלו על אלו. Then it doesn't work. It's like only half of them did an eruv. And these ones don't permit on these ones, and these ones don't permit on this one. It's like only half the people made an eruv, But you say, but everybody made an Eruv on his own. But you made an Eruv on your own. And that doesn't work like we learned before.
One cannot nullify themselves and say,
No, only one. You remember, only one person can nullify, but not more than one. And then there's more than one that cannot nullify. ולהכניס ולהוציא מבתיהם לחצר. אוקיי.